So this is how to make a webcomic for an absolute beginner. If you were interested in making a comic but you really don't know how to begin, then I'm going to try to help you figure that out. This is a guide mainly for Webtoons, but this could also work for Tapas, I'm pretty sure, although I haven't tried it, but mainly for Webtoons. So I hope it is helpful to you. Alright, so starting off, you'll need to make an actual account on the site. Up here, it should say login or something, where it has my name. You can make an account with Twitter, Facebook, Google, I think one other thing, email, however you want to do it, you gotta make an account. You'll click up here, and there's a thing that says dashboard. Click on that, and it will show your series. Now, if you first made it, you don't have a series yet. These are mine. I have one that I uploaded for a contest recently, and then I have my main one. But what you'll need to do is click on Create Series. And yes, you can upload stuff from your iPad. If you don't have a computer, you can do it from an iPad or probably other tablets, I'm not sure, but I can do it on my iPad. So it's going to come up. You're going to have to come up with a title for your story. Probably already have that. And a summary just to, describe it. You got to hook people. You got to get people to read it. And then your thumbnail here to, the visual hook. And right here it says recommended size is 436 by 436. Now the unit for that is pixels, and I don't know why they don't put it there, but that is what it is. And I'll show you what that means in a second. If you're not really experienced with a digital program, then I will show you what that means. But yeah, that's where your thumbnail's gonna go, and you gotta draw something good, something eye-catching, something interesting. You gotta pick genre, optional second genre. If it's 18 plus, make sure you click this button, and then you would hit Create Series, and it would bring you to the episode upload screen. Alright, here's the episode upload screen. This is actually for my comic, so it's going to say 25 instead of 1. If it's your first episode, it's going to say 1. Anyways, so you're going to put your title, whatever you want, chapter 1, episode 1, whatever. You got to put your thumbnail for the episode, and here again it says recommended size, and it gives you the dimensions of what the thumbnail has to be. And then over here is where you're going to upload your pages. And this is the important part that we need to look at, is the dimensions of the actual page. The image must be less than, it should say or equal to, 800 pixels wide and 1280 pixels long. And of course it has here the number of megabyte limit, and it must be JPG, however you would say that, JPEG and PNG only. I usually just save in JPEG. So, now that we know that, we know how big the page has got to be, let's get started. So, when I first started wanting to draw a comic, I didn't really know how to do digital art that well, and so I just would draw it on paper, and then take a picture of it, and then put it on the computer, and then just trace over it, or whatever. And I mean, this is one way to do it. Actually, the author of My Giant Nerd Boyfriend does this very thing. She actually made, I think she made a comic or something sometime where she explained her process, and essentially, she did, what I just said. She would draw something on a piece of paper, and then she'd scan it, probably not just take a picture of it, but scan it, and then put it on the computer, and then use a program to color it in. I think she just used it to color it in, but whatever. You can start on paper. I'm not against that, and I know that it's a valid way to do it if you're not comfortable with digital. If you want to do fully digital though, and you don't know what to do, what programs to use, where to get started, well, I think Medibang and Krita are both really good starter programs, and they're both free. That's a extra benefit. I started with Medibang. I tried Krita for a while, but I just kind of liked Medibang a bit more. They're very similar though. both really good for beginners, and I know that when I started, I knew a bunch of art friends online that were using the same program. So, you know, it's good options. Some programs that are just a little bit more sophisticated, a little more complex, would be Procreate, Clip Studio Art, and Photoshop. I'm currently using Procreate. I've used Clip Studio Art. I've seen a lot of people use Photoshop. All three of those are good and work for this process, but they're not free. So, you know, if you want free, Medibang, Krita. But these are not free for a reason. They do give you extra perks, but, you know, it's up to you what medium you use. Okay, now we need to get started. So, you'll create a new file, and remember what the dimensions were on the Webtoons page for a single page. 800 by 1280. Create. And now we have our page. So, it's self-explanatory, I think. This is where you will have your panels. So you might have a panel. You might not want to use a thick brush like that. But basically, this is where your stuff will go. So you'll make a panel. You'll draw a character. You'll do whatever you want to do. You can put some text. It's all up to you what you do with this. Now, however, you might run into the problem of being a little restricted quite quickly. As you can see right here, I only drew one panel, and I don't really have any room for anything else. You know, my pacing is restricted because I'm working with one little bitty space. And this is how, this is when we come to, you know, making longer files and working with that rather than working with page by page. I don't know if anyone really works one page at a time like that. So, a lot of creators will work with a longer file. They might take the original page length of 1280 and multiply it times 3, which would be 3,840. And now you have, you know, essentially you have 3 pages stacked on top of each other. Now you have a little more creative freedom with how you paste these panels. You're not forced into that tiny spot. So you might want to have about this much distance between these 2 panels. And I recommend having at least like that much space just for readability and clarity. And you know, you can pace it out a little more. And it's just a lot more comfortable. And in the end, you would crop at each one of these borders and upload each space as its own, you know, page. You would upload each space as a separate file. That way, it looks cohesive and it goes one at a time. Like here, like I was saying, these really long sweeping illustrations. Now that, you know, I explained it, you can see that in reality, it's just a bunch of pages stacked one after another with borders that are invisible because they're, you know, they're perfectly stacked on top of each other. Alright, so now let's get down to the actual process of making a page. I'm going to be using one of mine as an example. I guess it's a pretty good example, but only because I can break it down. So this is where I begin. I do a sketch, and actually I do a storyboard as well, which just means really, really sketchy sketch, and I just refine the sketch later. So this is the more refined sketch, and I just put it on one layer down here. Layer 1 is what I left it as. And that's just my basic, you know, layout, my basic plan. I write in the dialogue by hand, whatever. I do that on one layer. The next layer is the line art layer. So this is the layer where I do the line art. I have the sketch underneath. I put all the lines on top. I try to make sure there's no gaps because that makes it easier to just drop colors in later, you know, instead of coloring by hand, which is really tedious. And yeah, I just do all that in this stage. After that, I no longer need the sketch layer, so I turn it off and I do the color layer. And I do this all in one layer. Now, some people might have to use more layers. I completely understand that. I know that it's unusual to use just one layer for the background and the foreground, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I use multiple. But for this one in particular, for this page, I didn't feel the need to use separate layers for the background because there wasn't a lot of detail. I blocked in that background with airbrush. I kept it out of focus. It didn't need a lot of detail, so I felt comfortable with doing it all on the same layer, as you can see. So that is the next thing that I would do. It's just basic coloring. And then what I like to do is another layer set to overlay, where I put in basic shadowing like that and highlights like that. And I just give it, you know, a little depth to make it interesting. Whatever. And then I added another layer that is on hard light. Yeah, hard light. Just to give the color a kind of afternoony tint to it. That's just a style choice though, you don't have to do that. Then I have this layer up here for speech bubbles. And I drew in the tails myself. Some people might have a tool on their program that, you know, will automatically make these speech bubbles for them. But for me, I just draw the circle and the tail by myself and color it white. And so I put those in there. And then I have my actual text on separate layers, like this. And this is the font that I think looks best in comic form, so I use it. So that's basically it. It's not very complex, my particular process. And it's just, you know, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 layers. And 2 of those are just words. So one thing that I had to accept early on is that when you're making a comic, you have to simplify your style a little bit. That only applies if you have a super complex style. Because, you know, if you are online and you're looking at art, and some people have a really detailed, really beautiful art style. They have, you know, lots and lots of details, shading, rendering. Maybe their anatomy is very detailed, or their outfits, designs, the hair on their characters, scars, whatever. They have a ton of details and they like to really go crazy. That's great for illustrations and for large projects with tons of people that, you know, but in terms of working mostly solo or just with a small team on a webtoon, you're better off simplifying a lot. Like, a lot. Don't try to do crazy details unless you have at least maybe 5 people and y'all can kind of juggle the, you know, one person focuses on sketching and lining, another person might do sketching and lining, another one does color flats, another one does shading. You know, unless you have some pretty beefy team that is willing to buckle down, most of us don't, most of us are solo, but if you have that, maybe you can go a little more. But for the most part, try to find a style, a version of your style that is a little simpler. Yeah, just don't worry about putting too much detail. Be willing to accept less than perfect. Lower your standards a little on your art. Your readers, for the most part, aren't going to really notice the art as much. They're going to be absorbed in the story. So unless there is a dramatic drop in quality, they're probably not even going to notice. You're going to notice, you're going to probably stare at it for a long time and really hate it. But your readers, for the most part, are probably not artists and don't really care or even see it. They're focused on reading the story, you know, whatever. So be willing to accept less than what you consider to be ideal, because otherwise you're going to be working forever and never get an update out, or you're going to be cramming and grinding and you're going to want to die by the end of the chapter because your hands and your neck and your back and everything hurts. You're tired, you're dehydrated, you know. Don't do that to yourself. I mean, I tried for a while. It's not a good idea. A great example of this would be the comic True Beauty. where most of the panels look like this. She has a style that has, like, you know, mostly realistic human proportions, quite a bit of detail. It looks great. This looks really good already, but every now and then we get treated to an extra detailed piece of work where there's so many tiny details and rendering and shading and that kind of thing. But you can't do this on every single panel because you're gonna want to die by the end of it, so, you know, simplify it. Do what she did. Okay, so once you have your full page done, you know, you've finished, you like it, you got the dialogue in there, you're ready to go, you know, you want to upload it. Maybe you want to go ahead and make a few other pages before that, you know, whatever. But for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and, you know, upload these pages just to show you how to. So my methodology of doing this it's not convoluted, but it's a little bit, you know, whatever. So save it as a JPEG, like that, or a PNG. You know, you got options. It can be JPEG or PNG. Either formats are accepted by Webtoons. And then what I do is I would go into my photo album, find your picture, and then I would email it to myself. I would either email it to myself or I use Google Drive. I found that if I was uploading a bunch of pages at once, email would get bogged down quickly, so I started using Google Drive for it instead. So I'd click on Drive, then I'd choose a place, I would click there, I would click Save Here, and I would hit Upload, and it would upload to the drive. So now I'll go to my computer. Alright, so I've got Google Drive up here, Google, and I would go over here to this page that I uploaded. It says you uploaded today. It's also here in this folder, but I can get to it right here quicker. So I'd open it. Hello. Here it is. You know, same. It's the right file, just making sure. And then I would download it. And then what I do is I actually use Medibang, one of those programs I mentioned earlier. I use that to open my page and crop it to the right size, because Procreate is stinky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this file that I just downloaded from Google Drive. There it is. And I'm going to, you know, resize and crop and all that stuff. So, you know, we got this Control-Alt-I. Control-Alt-I. That's what I use to resize. And currently I'm working in, as you might notice, this is bigger than the 800 by whatever that I mentioned earlier. 800 by 1280. Well, this is actually 2 pages stacked on top of each other, multiplied times about 3. I think it's like 3.125 or something. I made it bigger and work in a bigger resolution because if you work in the 800 by whatever, it can be kind of pixelated and grainy. I mean, you can if you want to, but it is recommended that you just work with a bigger file and then go into your program, however you can do it, and resize it. So see, I typed 800 and it's the height adjusts automatically to 2560, which is approximately the length of 2 Webtoon pages just stacked on top of each other. And then I hit OK. See, now it's small. And you know, the resolution looks nice. I mean, you can see the pixels when you zoom in. And see, this is the reason I don't like to work in 800, is because it's just a little harder to add detail if you're initially working in low resolution. So, anyways, then I would do over here, Control-Alt-C. That's the shortcut for cropping. You can also get there by going up to Edit, I think. Maybe. No, wait. canvas size? Yeah, it's canvas size. Okay. In Medibang, it's edit, canvas size. But I just do Control-Alt-C because I memorized it. So I love Medibang for this reason, because you can just click on top center, which means it will crop starting from the top middle part, and then you type in 1280. That's the size of a Webtoons page, and it's, I don't know if you can tell, there's a box around it, right, like starting right there to there. There's a box showing where it's about to crop it. So then I would hit OK, and there, it has cropped a single page. Then I would save it. I did Control-Shift-S for save. And for this one, I'm just gonna call it test page, since I'm just demonstrating. And then the format that you have to save it in, you have the option of saving it in PNG or JPEG. I usually do JPEG. So I'd save it as a JPEG file, save, and I'd hit enter. And now I have this page. Now, if I want to get the other half, I'll just, you know, Control-Z, undo, and then go back to, how do I do it? Control-Alt-C, back to this canvas size tool, hit bottom center, since this time I want the crop to start from the bottom middle part of the canvas. Go here, type 1280 again, and then you can tell the box is on the lower half, the red box. And then I would hit OK, and now it has the bottom half of this file, the second page that I want to save. So I would do Control-Shift-S, that's the shortcut for save. And I'm gonna call this one test page 2. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna save it as JPEG again. Oh, it's out of focus. There we go. JPEG again. And then I would hit save. Okay. And now we can actually go to Webtoon and upload these pages. So here we are back at our episode upload page. Alright, so remember, you gotta put your title and you gotta put your thumbnail, and I'll cover that in a second actually. Select file. We click here, and the pages that I'm gonna upload are actually still in downloads, so I'm gonna go there. But I recommend making a whole folder for each installment of your comic, and that way you can go back to it and it's organized. So here's test page and test page 2. I'm gonna hold shift, I'm gonna press the up button, that way I can select both. And I don't know if you already knew that, but I'm gonna say it for those that don't. And open. It's gonna be uploading them. And it actually put them in the wrong order here, but that's what's great about Webtoon, because you can click and drag to put them in the right order. So there's test page 2. So you got your first 2 pages in there. And now you might want to preview and see, like, what does it look like, you know, before you upload it. Well, there's a button for that. So you can preview what it would look like if it was being read on a PC, and you can also preview to see what it looks like on a mobile. Most people read webcomics on mobile, I think. Pretty sure. So I'm going to click on mobile so you can see what that looks like. So, see, it pulls up a little window, and it just kind of simulates what it would look like on a phone. And it's really nice because it can help you see, like, I know that I've uploaded pages before, and I would put it there, and then I'd realize, oh no, my spacing is so bad, it's so crammed together. I didn't plan that well enough. And you just gotta be careful of that. I recommend checking it every time, and if you see that you put some stuff too close together or it's crammed, make sure you see it in this stage and not after you upload it. So, you know, make sure you review your pages. Like that. And then once you were satisfied with it, you would, well, you still need a thumbnail. I'm going to show you how to make a thumbnail now. Okay, so for the thumbnail part of the process, most people, from what I've seen, what they'll do is they'll just take one of the panels from one of the pages and just use that as the thumbnail to hook people in, because they don't have to draw anything new, and because it gives you a clear preview of what you're about to read. So what I'll do is I'm going to do that very same thing, because that's what I like to do, and I don't like to draw anything new. I like to just get it, you know, out there. So I'm going to take this page that we just finished working with. I'm going to select this area, and I'm going to go up here. I'm going to click crop. I want to say yes, because I'm trying to just crop this. Okay, we have this. And then we need to resize it to make it the dimensions of a Webtoons thumbnail, which, as you recall, are 160 by 151 pixels. So we'll go back. And we're going to resize, and for Medibang, like I said, Control, Alt, I. My hands are too small. And we have our dimensions here. We gotta type 160 for the width, and the height will just adjust itself. So, okay. And we made it a little bit, or I made it a little bit too tall. As you see, the height is more than 151. So I'm gonna go here to the canvas size, which just adjusts the canvas, not the size of the image. And I'm gonna change that to 151, and there. Now it is 160 by 151 pixels. That's the new dimensions. I'm gonna save that as test page thumb, and I'm gonna save it as a JPEG. Save. Boop. So I know that might have been a bit cumbersome, especially if you didn't follow every step of that process, but just know, in summation, for a thumbnail, make sure you have a file that is 160 by 151 pixels and upload it as your thumbnail. It's just do that. And now we're gonna go back in here, click, and go up to test page thumb. That's the file we need. Open. It's gonna load, and there's our new thumbnail. And our title can be whatever. I'm just gonna, you know, keyboard smash, since this is just an example. Actually, no, I'll do better than that. We'll call this chapter none, because it's not real. And then I'll go down, and normally you'd click publish episode. If you had all your pages together, you were ready, you know, to upload, you would hit publish episode. But right now I'm just gonna do save draft, because I'm not about to publish that. And but if you are the creator of the series, it'll be over here kind of like it is published, and you can read it just like if it was. So, not clicking on this button, clicking over here on the title, I can open it up and read it on my browser as if it was already uploaded. And just, you know, scroll down and look at it and get a nice, good preview of it. Of course, you can also get a preview. Like I said, I think I said earlier, you can also get a preview if you click here. You know, see what it would look like on mobile, and see what it would look like on PC. So you can already do that. So, yeah. That's how you do it. So, I'm gonna be showing you here a time lapse of actually another one of my pages, just for visual's sake. But, I was chatting with people online who had some questions, and I thought I'd, you know, try to answer those as well. Some of these branch outside of the technical and more into the creative aspect, so I can't always really give you an objective advice. But anyways, so one question that I've gotten is, you know, you have the story written before you start working on your comic? I mean, that depends person to person. If you're one of those people that wants to have everything planned so that you don't reach a point where you're like, oh, what do I do now? Then yeah, go for it. But don't feel pressured to if it's your first one and you're just trying to learn the medium and, you know, try comic making for the first time. I don't recommend sitting around and mulling over it and you know, getting all meticulous and wrapped up in the details, because then you might not ever be able to move forward. Sometimes you just gotta do it. You just gotta start doing stuff and putting down something and uploading something, even if you don't have it entirely planned. Otherwise, you'll be stuck in the planning stage and too apprehensive and afraid to start. And that doesn't get you anywhere. That prohibits, I mean, that halts progress. Another question was about time management. So I'm not the greatest example for this, but I've talked to some people who both work with comic creators and who make comics, and I've also experienced it myself, that it's good to, at least while you are working, every 20 minutes, sometimes less, set a timer, get up, and stretch. Do stretches that are focused on your hands, your arms, and your back, your shoulders. You know, get up and stretch, drink some water, plenty of water. Look away from the screens because your eyes are going to get super strained. You know, that kind of thing. And I guess, you know, depending on who you are and how much you can take, don't draw for more than maybe 5 hours at a time. You're gonna start to feel the pain if you go beyond that. It's gonna start to really hurt. I know from experience that my neck, my shoulders, my mid-back, upper back, lower back, my forearms, and my thumb joints, wrists, tendons on the backs of my hands, everything on just hurts. Right now, currently, because I pushed myself too far. And that's a terrible way to live. It just kind of makes it hard to work and starts to discourage you from working at all. And it's really bad. So, you know, learn what time management works for you, because it might be different for everyone. But I certainly recommend the 20-minute interval taking breaks thing to start with, because that's what I was doing, and for a long time it was really, really working. I just broke that rule, and that's why I'm in pain now. Don't take my admission of pain as being like proof my schedule doesn't work. It does if you actually stick to it. I broke out of it and I was working without breaks, and that's why I'm in pain now. Don't do that. You will be so mad at yourself. I also have gotten questions about update schedule. This is different for everyone. When you're not an official Webtoons creator and you're not hired by them, it's completely up to you. I think that doing a monthly, once every month, is a good way to start. You don't want to try to push yourself to do the weekly thing, because especially if you're working solo and you don't really have a lot of professional experience, you're gonna want to die if you start trying to do it week to week. Or you're gonna have really short updates because you're not gonna be able to finish a good substantial update each week because it takes a lot of time and a lot of work. You'll probably end up like, oh man, it's been a week, but I only have like 5 panels done. Oh well, and you update it, but it's super short. And honestly, if the chapters are super short and don't really give us much to walk away with, it's just not gonna stick in people's brains, even if it's, you know, somewhat often. But honestly, I recommend waiting until you actually have a pretty lengthy chapter to upload. And because of that, I think you should space it out maybe every 3 or 4 weeks. Each month is a good starter schedule. I think that's what I got into doing, especially since I'm in college. It gives you a little breathing room and less pressure, especially when you are starting. You can start to do it quicker than that over time if you get better, but don't hurt yourself. And if you have help, if you have people helping you and you're not working solo, you can certainly try to do it quicker. But I definitely would say start with a monthly thing. Buffer chapters. That's another thing. A completely, you know, individual choice. Buffer chapters, if you don't know what that is where people will go ahead and they'll make maybe 3 chapters before uploading anything. They'll go and complete like 3, and then they will start to upload them one at a time on a certain schedule. That way, if they get busy one week and they don't have anything ready, at least they have a backup. You know, I mean, they have one in storage so they can say, okay, well, I'll go ahead and upload this one, even though I don't have a new chapter. It's because, you know, if someone falls behind but they want to keep up that weekly or 2-week or whatever schedule, they have a chapter ready. And of course, that's up to you. If you want to do that, do it. I don't. I don't because I don't know, no specific reason. I just never. Another question was about what kind of genre you should start with, like slice of life or full-length continuous story. I guess slice of life isn't exactly the right word. Maybe like, you know, those short comics, like the kind that would have been in newspapers years ago. Like My Giant Nerd Boyfriend, Blue Chair, Murs, those kinds of comics. Well, I'd say that really doesn't have to do with experiences and has more to do with who you are and what you want to put out there. Do you want to put a short, funny comic that's just like a you know, the story's not continuous, it's just a quick, funny thing? Or do you want to do a long, continuous story? That's just up to you. That has nothing to do with experience, I think.